Long ago in ancient Egypt, the people there played a card game that was said to contain a mystical power that only the gods could handle themselves. This power was sealed away for millennia, but finally, someone has awakened this power. It's time to duel.
Oh, what the hell? Seriously, did this really just happen? Are we really, running out of ideas? I mean, look back at Eldritch Moon, we got fusion monsters, and now we have flippin' Yu-Gi-Oh! The Gathering set. Ugh. Seriously, I don't understand this. I mean, I think several players have complained about the unoriginality of Magic has in certain spurts and how they borrow things here and there. And granted, I think ultimately every game designer borrows their creations from somewhere, but this is just flippin' ridiculous. You know, I never thought I'd see the day where there would actually be an Egyptian god card, such an original idea, in Magic the Gathering. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, who gives people permission to make these cards? I mean, seriously, what? How can you be so unoriginal? I mean, seriously, this just really kind of pushes my buttons. I mean, there's so many other cool ideas that can be done. Why ancient Egypt? Why there? It's been done before. There are billions of other cool ideas. I know several people request certain ideas for sets, but I never heard this one requested one bit. What's up with this?
Silence, mortal.
Who said that?
It is I, Ronas the Indomitable, God of the Trial of Strength.
Who?
You have heard me the first time, mortal. I have come to silence your voice from saying pessimistic things about my existence, and all of your negative things that you have said about the godkin of Amonket.
No, I was just talking about how this gaming company is completely unoriginal. I mean, they've been thinking of all these unoriginal ideas since, last year. I mean, come on, fusing two monsters together, I mean, that's been done in a game several times before.
How dare you mock us and say we are unoriginal? We are the most original beings in the multiverse.
That's a really bold claim, and frankly, you're not that original. There are several other games that offer Egyptian god cards.
Silence! Your words are foolish, and for that, you must be punished with an eternal curse.
Whoa, that's hardcore, dude. You don't have to do that, man. I mean, come on.
Yes, you shall be cursed unless you bestow praise to the best cards in Amonket, the greatest Magic the Gathering set ever printed.
Whoa. First of all, that claim is completely up for debate. It's not the best set ever printed. I mean, it's not bad, but I mean, come on, I mean...
Enough! I grow sick of your bickering. You will begin your praise immediately.
Where am I?
This is my neighbor's garden. Now get to work.
Oh, whoa. Chill out. Hold on. Okay, can I at least, get comfortable or find a cozy spot before I get started on this?
Sometime later.
Okay, so now that we're settled in...
Get to work.
Okay, I'll start, but you have to let me do this like I normally do this. This is how it works for me, okay? So I'm going to start at the beginning of the color wheel, starting with the white cards. And I guess we'll start off with the oh-so-original concept of Egyptian god cards. Oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. Like the original Theros block, which was the first block to ever feature god cards, Amonket features 5 gods, one of each color, just very similar to that of the original Theros block. For white, rather than Heliod, god of the sun, which is nowhere to be seen given he lives on another plane, we have Oketra. The thing about these god cards is they don't run on devotion, they run on, well, put it this way, they're always creatures, they're not enchantments. But the thing is that they can only attack or block if you meet a certain requirement that they particularly like. Oketra's requirement is that you need to have at least 3 or more creatures before that Oketra can actually attack. But like the other gods before this set was released, you can actually use its activated ability to make some creatures and therefore turn this god on.
Frankly, I feel like this would have been a bit better if it cost 1 less and maybe had 1 less toughness. But frankly, I think this card's not too shabby. I feel like it's a good card for your casual token deck. I'm sure there's a lot of EDH decks that run on a lot of tokens. White is a very common color for tokens. So a Ketra may be, well, decent. And since it is a legendary creature, you can likely see it being part of, or as being used as, well, your general.
You are a fool. Oketra's mana cost is perfectly fine.
Well, sorry. That's my opinion. You're gonna have to get used to it. Let's keep going. I know Egyptian god cards aren't that original.
You ignorant mortal. We are the most original beings in the multiverse.
Look, we're never going to get through this if you keep interrupting me, so we're going to go move on to something a bit more original. While there are a cycle of new god cards which aren't quite the same as the original gods from the Theros block, we do have a new set of trial enchantments. These are actually very neat. I feel like they can be very well exploited if you have a way to keep bouncing them in and out of play and getting their triggered abilities upon entering the battlefield. The white one is not too bad. It actually gives your creatures a pretty big buff for the amount of mana you pay for it. Normally, I feel like a spell that normally does this costs about 1 more mana, but the thing is, this is on an enchantment, so you can keep using it over and over again. Now, in addition to having an awesome triggered ability attached to it, it also has another effect where you can actually return it to your hand by playing a cartouche enchantment, or just a cartouche in general. Right now, the only cartouches we have are these, well, auras, and frankly, they're, well, nothing to really sneeze at. They just seem like they're really going to be played in draft. I really don't really see any aura deck showing up in standard anytime soon, but you never know, it could happen, and frankly, it doesn't matter what color cartouche you play, as long as you play a cartouche. Speaking of trials, next up is a brand spanking new Planeswalker, Gideon. Well, I guess you could say Gideon is not new himself. We've had several versions of Gideon over the years, but you know what I mean. It's a brand spanking new Planeswalker, and hot dog, it's really flippin' hot. No, seriously, it's like this card's on fire. No joke. This card will be played in, well, a lot of formats. I'll just give it that much. Just by looking at what this does, it's just fantastic. And I really think that, gosh, this has so much playability. It's just absolutely stellar. And frankly, just that last ability there, just having an emblem that you can make instantaneously, not having any requirements, just saying you can't lose a game as long as you control a Gideon Planeswalker is just the bomb. It's the bomb. In decks, in games where you play against a very degenerate combo or something that you can't normally stop, this will just be wonderful to have. And this is why I think it could honestly just find a home in a lot of, I guess you could say, decks in Legacy, simply because a lot of Legacy decks have a lot of really degenerate win conditions. However, the big catch is that you do have to get rid of the Gideon in order for the emblem not to work, and honestly, there's a lot of things that can get rid of this Gideon. Aside from this emblem, the other abilities are actually pretty sweet. Preventing damage is always nice, and especially if you're going to be running a deck where you, I guess you could say, are trying to stabilize, it's nice to have. And in addition, having the ability to turn Gideon into a creature is always nice, and very flavorful considering most Gideons have this ability. Personally, I think this Planeswalker will have a home in Ad Nauseam decks, simply because Ad Nauseam decks, well, let's just face it, like to go into negative life and need a way to, well, stay alive. Although there are some already printed, I feel like this Planeswalker might actually have a home in that deck, which is kind of surprising because I don't think anyone really expected that deck to have a Planeswalker. Up next, we have White's last card for the Mythic slot, and that is the Angel of Sanctions. This card features a new mechanic called Embalm, which I feel is really flippin' good. In case you're wondering, Embalm is a lot like Unearth from the Alara block, except you get a creature token rather than the actual copy of the card. The creature is exiled after you embalm them, but you do get the token, and it's basically the same as a creature, just without no mana cost, and I believe it's usually white. It usually says on what it is on the card, but the point is you get the creature back. It's basically like casting a creature again with flashback. It's casting a creature with flashback, essentially. I mean, honestly, I'm sure if you've been watching my videos, you know how much board wipe hate we've been getting lately, and frankly, I think the embalm mechanic in general is just a way to combat all those board wipes in general, even though there really aren't that many, and even so, for standard, they're really not that great. But Embalm is actually really good. Considering cards like Lingering Souls have been effective over the years, and even are still played in Modern today, I feel like Embalm definitely has a shot of being a very, very powerful mechanic. As far as this angel goes, I don't think this angel is super bad. I don't think it's mind-blowing or anything, but I think it does have its uses. It can get planeswalkers, but I just wish it said just get rid of the permanent indefinitely. None of this until it leaves the battlefield thing. But honestly, I think it just could have been better, even though it does have Embalm. Granted, you can eat the permanent up again when you embalm it, but still, I think this could have been a bit more powerful. Next up, we're going to talk about some cards that like to nerf other cards in the form of Gideon's Intervention. This card kind of combines Nevermore and Rune Halo into one spanking new card. This card kind of combines those two cards to form one super powerful card that just basically takes a card out of the game. It does cost 4 mana, so honestly, I feel like since White does have these options of getting rid of or preventing players from playing these cards or protecting you from certain cards, I feel like there may be better options if you're looking for something to play for Modern. So, this may be just limited to Standard.
How dare you say this card is weak? It has so much potential.
I didn't say it was weak. I just said there are better options in Modern and probably better options in Legacy, if there are cards like this played in Legacy.
But it's unique and original, just like every other card in the set.
You want to talk about originality? You just made White Parallel Lives.
That card was made for Regal Caractl.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could get 4 cat tokens off Regal Caracal, or whatever his name is. But honestly, you can also get double Embalm tokens, too.
Also, don't forget about White Sun Zenith.
Yeah, I see why that can be powerful, but really, no one plays tribal cats. Speaking of suns, let's move on to another card called the Approach of Nicol Bolas. This is actually a really neat card, and I bet you there are going to be some decks built around it in well-constructed play. The best news is that, well, you do need to cast 2 cards of it to actually win the game, which is pretty bombastic. I mean, it does cost 7 mana, but with green, if you splice green or any other color that can potentially ramp, this could get out of hand, well, pretty darn quickly, I feel. The good news about the card is it doesn't really care if the first copy resolved. You just had to, well, cast it, and, well, even if the spell got countered originally, the second one just needs to resolve. So basically, you just have to make sure that second spell resolved, and you don't have to resolve the first one. As long as you've cast it, it should check to see whether, well, it actually took its effect. I really like this card, and like I said, I'm sure people are going to be brewing with it. I mean, even if you don't win the game at first, it still does give you 7 life, so you do have to be a little stable in order for it to get to really working, and frankly, there are a lot of cards that do draw cards in just about every format, so although it does put it 7 cards deeper into your library, it should be easy to get back out, really, when you put a whole bunch of synergistic cards all together. Moving on, let's talk about a new mechanic called Exert. Exert essentially means that when a creature attacks, you can actually exert it, and therefore it won't untap during its controller's next untap step. Of course, you'll likely need another card or so to really untap it if you really want to abuse this effect to its most purest intent. But frankly, I feel like a lot of Exert cards are really good. Glory-Bound Initiate, I feel like, is kind of middle of the road in terms of the Exert cards. I feel like 4 life boost for tapping one creature and not letting it untap may be good in some scenarios, but in some others, I really kind of feel like 4 life may not be enough to get the job done. However, a 4/4 for 2 is, well, pretty pushed, even if it is only temporary. And do think about it, it is a, well, 8-point life swing. Finally, we come up to another mechanic that, well, honestly is actually pretty sweet. I really like this mechanic, and I guess you could call it the Aftermath card. At first glance, you'll probably wonder what the hell this is, but it's really not that hard to understand when you really take a closer look. You have to view Aftermath cards as kind of like a split card, only the first half you can only cast from your hand, and the other half you can cast from your graveyard. It's kind of like Flashback, except the other half does something completely different. White's pure Aftermath card is From Dusk Till Dawn, and honestly, Dusk is a pretty neat card. I do like the fact that they're bringing back 4 mana board wipes, even though they don't really kill everything. Dawn, on the other hand, is actually pretty sweet. If you do run a bunch of little creatures that were killed by the big creatures that you killed with Dusk, you can just bring them all back to your hand, and I really feel like that's pretty sweet. Of course, really pushing this card would bring all these creatures into play, but I feel like you get a lot of value for paying 5 mana. However, one thing to say is that I feel like the Aftermath side of a lot of cards I think is a little conservatively pushed, and some of their effects really aren't, well, all that amazing, but this card's actually pretty sweet.
What's wrong with the mana cost?
Well, I mean, I feel like you could probably get away with 4.
No, 5 is perfect.
Fine, you're just being weird. Moving on, I'd like to talk about a returning mechanic that I'm quite stoked about, and that's cycling. This new enchantment, Cast Out, or I guess Cycling Oblivion Ring, is, well, probably going to be seeing some play in Standard. Other formats, I'm not so sure, but the nice thing is that you can cycle it if you like to for just 1 white mana. Honestly, I feel like this will be more better for casual, for a deck that really likes to recur enchantments. You can cycle your enchantments and bring it back with something like Replenish, if people still play Replenish. But honestly, this is a sweet card. I feel like it will see some play for Standard, if the moment arises. But honestly, I can't really think of why you would want to cycle an Oblivion Ring unless your opponent had absolutely no non-land permanents. Moving on to some more enchantments, we're going over some Pillow Fort tech in the form of protection from Heckma. I think I'm saying that right. Anyway, protection from Heckma is very similar to a card like Urza's Armor, except it is white and costs 1 less. Honestly, I think we've needed a card like this for quite some time because these cards these days seem to be few and far in between. If you like Pillow Forts, this is a card for you. Somehow True Heart Duelist got this spot as the promo for the, I guess you could say, the game day promo, or one of the game day promos. Frankly, since it does have a pretty defensive ability, I think it should have had at least 1 more toughness. Moving on, we have another card with Cycling that I actually think could actually see some play in some constructed decks. Living End, to be more specific. It's the Winged Shepherd. Now, I know Living End decks usually don't involve white mana, but maybe this can change. Maybe Winged Shepherd can push that deck into, well, I don't know, a white constructed deck for Modern that plays Living End. After all, there are other white creatures with cycling, so it really doesn't make any sense why, well, the Winged Shepherd just can't fit into that archetype. Since I feel like Saheeli Rai kind of ruins a lot of Standard these days, I think this Vizier of Deferment was very awkwardly worded, just so you really couldn't take too much advantage of that. But frankly, this isn't awful. It will give you some value for bouncing a creature. Like you say, it's practically a paragraph, and honestly, I really don't like when cards become this, well, awkwardly worded, just because it kind of restricts them from doing what you, well, want them to do.
Why do you hate cards with so much potential?
Well, what do you want me to say? I mean, you could play Restoration Angel, there's, what's it called, Flicker Wisps. There's so many other options you can play. I mean, and frankly, this set's not as great as you make it out to be. I mean, you didn't even mention any reprints.
There are several reprints. Take a look at this one here.
Which one? Oh my god, that's a reprint. Holy cow. I guess that's not a bad card. I kind of miss that card, actually, and I'm actually kind of glad Renewed Faith is back in, well, I guess you could say Standard, but it's going to be in Modern now, or at least it will be Modern playable. Now all we need is to reprint Astral Slide.
Now you see the truth. Have a look at this Modern staple.
What? Oh my! You reprint him? Really? Wow! Hey, that's great. But why is he a rare? I mean, you always have to reprint like commons and uncommons. But hey, I mean, at least he's pretty sweet. I mean, I like this guy a lot. Heck, maybe the set is pretty stellar, just like you say. It may be, but I'm happy to see this guy. That's the point. But anyway, I'm happy to see Aven Mind Sensor. That's just a great card to see, and frankly, Aven Mind Sensors are kind of hard to find. Honestly, I don't think it would be super great for Standard at the moment, considering not too many people like to search their libraries, but that might change. We might see a resurgence in fetch lands in the future. As of right now, I don't think he's super hot for Standard, but I think he's a pretty trollish card in Modern.